It is that time of year when we start to think about cutting back our plants for autumn. Now, before I kick off, obviously there are lots of plants you want to leave, any kind of evergreen shrubs, any trees obviously, and any kind of certain things like hydrangeas, etc. we will prune in the spring, so don't prune your hydrangeas right now. But there is still so much stuff that's gone over, looks a bit messy, looks a bit scrappy, and there's different things that we can do. Obviously we want to leave as much as possible for the birds and the bees and the insects, etc., to make sure that they still have stuff to pollinate, because there will still be the odd bee around. We want to make sure that the seed heads are left for birds, etc. But I am also going to go around and tell you which bits I'm cutting back and what I'm leaving, because I know it is really hard when you're, you know, a beginner gardener and starting out and you're like, well, what do I need to cut back and what do I need to leave? And to be honest, there's no right or wrong answer for some of these. Some people will cut them back now, some people will wait till February. The main reason why I'm going to be cutting back a little bit more than probably some other people might be is because I have loads and loads of bulbs to plant and I need to make room for them. So again, if you're planting bulbs, you want to make sure that you're cutting things back. Now is also a really good time of year to be dividing any perennials. So again, this is the time of year, whilst they've still got their greenery on and I can see where they are, that I start to dig them up, split them in half and do that. There'll be a whole nother video on that coming. So come with me for a little journey around my garden and I'll chat through what I'm leaving, what I'm going to cut back to the ground, and anything that needs pruning. Hope you enjoy it.
So let's get started. This is Stipa tenuissima grass. I'm actually going to move it from this pot, but this does not need pruning at this time of year. Leave this grass where it is. I'll be leaving any olive trees. They don't need pruning. Leave them where they are. You can see there's a little bit of Alchemilla mollis at the bottom. I'll leave it for a little bit longer, but then I will start to prune the Alchemilla mollis. But one of the things that's really, really important is that we don't prune our hydrangeas. I'm showing you where I will prune it next spring, but leave those heads on. They will look lovely and brown and have a lovely, lovely colour. Next one here is a shrub rose. I'm going to do a whole video on pruning roses, but I'm probably just going to cut down some of the whippy growth so that it doesn't damage the rose. Next up is this hosta. It's looking pretty ropey. You can see the yellow leaves. Going to prune that all the way to the ground and cut it right back. Going to leave that hydrangea there, and here's a geranium roseanne, the purple flowers. I'm going to dig that up and divide it, and then this is Solomon's seal, again cutting right back to the ground, and the rhizomes will reflower next year. Next up is lamb's ear, which has a very complicated Latin name that I'm not going to be able to name. Again, you can see it's looking really ropey. Going to cut that right back to the base. There's some more hostas, leave them a bit longer and then cut back to the base too. Next up is penstemons. I never know what to do with these. A lot of people say to leave it over winter and then prune it back in spring. So I think I'm going to do that with penstemons because they don't do well in the frosts. Next up is another rose. It's flowering beautifully. My best friend bought me this one. I love it so much. So I have left it whilst it's flowering. But again, I'll be chopping it back roughly and then going back in winter and doing a proper prune. But for now, it is staying where it is whilst it's flowering. These are sedums, going to let them flower, but then I will prune them back to the ground. This is a lilac. It's an, I'm going to leave that completely. If I prune it now, then it won't have flowers next year. So if you have a lilac bush, leave it. Next up, this is either Sweet Rocket or Hesperus. Can't remember which one. Look at my pink wellies, don't they look fab? These have the most gorgeous little flowers, so I'll leave them a little bit longer whilst the flowers are there. And then again, I will chop that all the way to the ground. I'm not expecting it to come back next year because it's a biennial, but I will chop it back and leave it and let's see what happens. Next up on the ground is begonias. I will leave them. Foxgloves, leave them. They're looking really, really good for next year. And then you can see another hydrangea at the back there. Tree looking fabulous. Won't be doing anything other than giving it a good old mulch around the base. And you can see the whole garden is looking really autumnal. This bit's underneath the pergola and looks so awful. I was nearly not going to show you this, but this is the catmint, and then I have a dead hydrangea in there which has definitely lost its life, so that will be being replaced with bulbs and maybe some pansies and violas, and I'll be cutting the catmint back right to the base too. So this here is Echinops. I'll be leaving them because the seed heads are incredible for small birds. So that one I will not be cutting to the base. I'll be leaving that one where it is for some winter structure. I've also got loads of allium seed heads, but to be honest, they're flopping everywhere. So I'm going to pull them out and you can spray them for winter colour. This one is a summer drummer, which flowers in the summer and it's so, so tall. Look how massive that is in the garden. Next up is, this is a Linaria. It's flowering beautifully, so I'm going to leave it a little bit longer, but then cut it right to the base. And then you can see here some of the Nigella seed heads. heads, I'm going to crack this one open and you can see all of the seeds. So again, chucking them about and self-seeding them on the ground. But again, I will be pulling them up and sharing them. This is Cineraria. The tall stems with the flowers will be chopped back. They used to have yellow flowers in the summer. And then, oh my God, look here how much Nigella has self-sown. I'm going to have to sort some of this out because it's all over the path. So that'll be having a good sort out this autumn. Lavender's already been pruned. Hebes I'm leaving. Roses need deadheading and then again prune in winter. And then over this side got some more sedums. And then this bed I have already cut back quite a lot, but I have left this peony, but it will be cut right to the base. And it's really important with peonies that you leave the crown, so I won't be mulching around this area, which is why I've left it a bit longer, so when I mulch I know where it is. Wisteria gets pruned twice a year. We should have pruned it in the summer. If you haven't, then you probably just about get away with it. And then I've got a gorgeous climbing rose. This is Shropshire Lad from David Austin Roses. Again, I'll be cutting back any whippy shoots. You can see loads of stuff self-seeded. Got the Stipa tenuissima, so we won't be cutting that back. And then some Verbena bodnarensis, can never say it. That I'll leave to flower a bit longer, and then I'll chop it down to the base, and hopefully it'll come back next year. This bed has more of the echinops. I'm actually going to cut this all the way to the base. It's really taken over the border, and I really want to make sure that I have room for bulbs. And then this last border, the rose is still going. There's more linaria, and lots of stuff flowering, so then I will cut it back. This rose you can see has had a bit of rose budding, which is where water gets on the outside, so I'm just pulling that off to make sure that the rose can continue blooming. It's quite late for roses, but sometimes they do have a second flush, so just take off any brown leaves if you have it on your roses, and then it will help it to open up much wider. This rose is the most gorgeous colour, and I got it from Peter Beals, which is a rose company based here in Norfolk. And then there's another rose that is blooming in the other border. This one is the Lady Gardener rose, I think, from David Austin. It's beautiful. And then chrysanthemums, yay, I love these. They're really flowering in their element. Some of them are flopped over, so I'll give a few cut back. And then salvias, again, I cut these back right to the base. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. There's lots going on in the garden this autumn, but want to leave as much as possible for the birds and bees. I'll certainly be leaving these for the birds, and as much that's in flower for the bees too. If you have any questions, then let me know, and I really hope that was helpful.